Before you start playing this game, I need to tell you about the rules of the game. You'll find that a lot of things are explained in the ultimate cheat book. It will be your guide and your manual while you navigate this course. Um, the first thing that you'll learn is that there is a mountain of mediocrity where you're probably stuck right now. What I mean by this is that your essay writing skills probably, most likely, are pretty average right now, not too good and not too bad. The whole idea is to get you from that mountain where you end up getting an average score to get you from there to the point where you get a very high score. And you'll see that the gradient and the slope of the mountain is very steep. So as soon as you cross a certain level, you're going to find that your marks just skyrocket disproportionately. And that is a situation you want to be in. You'll take the first steps, of course, by initiating this course. You'll have a nice handy dashboard where you track your progress. You know how well you're doing, how much time you're spending on it, what your progress is, and this will be handy. You can pace yourself, do it at your own speed, at your own style, while you are watching, while you're in the bathroom or traveling, just anything and everything that makes this course very useful, at least far more useful than a book which you have to sit down and read. You'll enter these lectures. You'll have detailed lectures where I'll tell you something important about essay writing, where I'll also take you inside essay topics. We will talk about essay topics in detail and we'll deconstruct them. We'll figure out how we already know quite a lot about essays, but we don't realize it. We'll think about what points are already there in our mind. We'll learn how to extract them and we will build really good, sophisticated essays out of these commonsensical points, which we'll find is exactly what is needed in writing a good essay. But all that comes later. You'll go through a lot of exercises. As you progress through the levels, there are exercises and levels which you'll have to cross, which will unlock one by one. You'll have to finish one before the other one unlocks, which is, I think, the best way for learning to happen, because otherwise you tend to become very indisciplined. You'll be able to ask your doubts and even post pictures of your answers, and somebody will immediately respond to you. And if you have doubts, at the end of every level, you're going to find a cheat code. It's going to be a very powerful thing, and you won't get that cheat code before you do all the hard work, and you are going to have to do the hard work. There is no escape from that. And the beauty of this whole exercise, this whole course, is that it's going to force you to do that hard work, but it won't feel like hard work. It'll feel like you're playing a game, and that's exactly the idea. And I just wish that this stuff existed while I was preparing. It would have made my life so much easier. But it's amazing what technology can do and how much you could actually boost your learning when technology is used in the right way, in an intelligent way. Um, Not only will you be choosing and clicking, you will be typing as well in this course. You won't be able to progress until you show me that you are understanding what we're going through. I will ask for your responses and somebody will evaluate them. You will be given solved examples and then you'll write responses of your own. And at the end of that page, you'll be able to see exactly what you've written. You won't be asked to write a full essay in the beginning because that makes absolutely no sense. You'll write really good essays towards the end, but in the beginning, we're going to talk about all the blocks of it. You will start, you will learn how to create really good introductions, and then you learn how to create really good arguments. Then you learn how to create really good conclusions, and then you learn how to really string all that together. You also will have to consider and remember that the COVID 19 pandemic is the biggest event of our lifetimes so far, and no essay is complete without you mentioning something about it or without you talking about the implications of it. Now, this course has been completely entrenched inside the COVID 19 pandemic, and it was actually created at that time. I will talk about the implications of the pandemic and how it affects different topics. We'll talk about how to use the points, which data to use, and how best to use it to strengthen and weaken our arguments, and a lot of detail you're going to find in this course. As you go into the first level, you will have to cross three lectures to progress to the next one. In the first one, you're going to find yourself in jail. Yes, you're going to find yourself in jail. You're going to be locked up in a jail, and the only way out of that jail is going to be for you to write a letter to a judge. You'll have to please that judge, who's a very strict judge and expects you to do certain things. And we'll learn later that that judge is the UPSC, and your defense is actually your essay. And then we'll talk about time and how never to be in a situation where you're chasing after time. It's you who should be in control of time. And we'll talk about time mastery and how to get an absolute control over time in the examination, so that you always have that upper edge, that vital extra edge. You'll enter the matrix. No, not this kind of matrix. We'll enter another kind of matrix. You will be faced with choices in the examination, and you're going to have to pick a topic out of each of these sections. But this is actually a very tricky situation for you to be in, because you learn that it's not easy to pick the best one. How do you know which the best one is? How are you going to pick them? All of these things will be spoken about in detail. You'll be introduced to uh, the latest research in psychology as well, about how your brain works, makes decisions, and how you can use this to your advantage in the examination. This will give you some really good inputs about psychology and how to use psychology in your essays as well. It's an important dimension and a very impressive dimension to add in essays, and we'll talk about that in detail. And you'll be able to access the decision matrix tool, which you can practice right now. This tool is a tool which is going to give you honest and brutal feedback about your own preparation. You will select topics, and you'll be able to rate those topics based on the questions in the decision criteria. It's like a quiz, like a game. When you answer all these, it'll give you a score which will tell you how well prepared you are on a topic. And isn't that amazing? I wish there were more tools like that when I was actually preparing. And then we'll move on to the next level. Next, you will come face to face with essay topics, and you will learn what to do with them when you have to start writing. You know, before you write the essay, you write the essay in your head, and everything that you do before you put pen to paper is called pre-writing. We'll talk about that in detail in this module. You'll unlock illustrations and practices as you go. You will realize that you're like Amir Khan in the movie Gajni, who keeps forgetting things, and you'll also keep forgetting things in the essay paper, and how to actually take inspiration from him and his character and make sure that you don't have the same problem in the essay paper as he did in the movie. We'll talk about the left side of the brain and the right side, where uh, the brain is actually has two kinds of modes, and we should engage both in order to make our learning and our essay as effective as possible. An essay or an answer ultimately is an act of creation and expression, which needs to be logical as well as expressive. And we'll talk about that in detail. We'll learn how to actually do the rough work in a format, in a way which is most beneficial, and actually recruits the networks in your brain which you need to, and how you will put that in a usable format, so that when you are actually writing, those points will actually become part of your essay and you don't skip anything, because there's no point in doing any rough work if you're not going to really use all the points that you've generated to the maximum advantage that you can. We'll talk about the cheat code, which I have never shared with anybody. I used to use it all the time. You'll find it in this lecture. We'll talk about deconstruction and how an essay topic is like an object which you must unravel and deconstruct, lay out in front of the examiner for him to see in all its neatness and in all its organization. And an essay topic is like that. You have to unfold the essay topic to find out what are the things which it is made up of, how those things fit together, and why those things are important. We'll talk about that in detail, but also in the process, learn that when we think about an essay topic or a concept or anything, we are actually engaging our knowledge networks. Um, while we are brainstorming and while we are thinking about the essay topic, how to actually use those networks to our advantage, so that the maximum amount of points can be generated. We'll talk about that, and this will help you across the board while answering questions in the mains. examination, which includes general studies and ethics, and everywhere where you have to write an answer to a question in the examination, these techniques are going to help you. You'll go through some exercises where you'll deconstruct and decode essay topics to actually get at what the essay topic is trying to say. And after that practice, you will never falter on that front again. In the next lecture, we'll talk about Spider Man. We'll actually meet Spider Man, and we'll see how the essay topic is usually about relationships between one or two things, and how it's that relationship which is at the heart of the essay. We will figure out how to deconstruct an essay topic and get to the heart of it. We'll talk about a lot of solved examples. In fact, a lot of all the solved examples in these video lectures are from the previous year question papers of the UPSC, uh, and we will talk about those in detail, including solving many of them, deconstructing them, and figuring out what they're about. You will unlock a cheat code at the end of it, which will make your life really easy. And all this because before you put pen to paper, you have to have your idea and your game plan set in front of you, because this is a paper and pen test. If you falter, if you go wrong, if you write too much about something or too less about something, there is very little scope of you to change that. So before entering into this level and going through it, you must realize that this is one of the most vital aspects of writing an essay. And once you go through this exercise, this level, I can assure you that you will never have a problem as far as pre-writing and understanding a topic is concerned. You will always be able to deconstruct it, get to the bottom of it, never go wrong with it, never misunderstand the essence of it, and always be able to impress upon the examiner that you have understood the topic in depth. And I think that's vital, and which is why you will have plenty of detailed conversation and practice on this aspect. In the third level, we will talk about the nuts and bolts. We'll talk about the details of writing your essay. What is your introduction going to be like? What are going to be part of your arguments? How are you going to write your conclusions? We'll talk about the COVID-19 pandemic and how to think about an essay topic, consider the implications of the pandemic, how it can be used as an example, what data can be inserted which is relevant to the topic. We'll talk about the essay generation algorithm, where this will be introduced to you as a very powerful method which you can use to produce answers on any essay topic, answers and essays for any essay topic. We'll meet Jeff Bezos along the way, and we'll see why capitalism is or isn't good for inclusive growth. We'll understand these topics and many, many more in detail. We'll use visual cues, humor, understanding to increase the depth of our understanding. You'll learn that introductions are a lot like the poster for a movie, where they tell the reader how your arguments are going to progress and what kind of expectation they should have while they're going into reading your essay. We'll take inspiration from that and be able to use that effect to a lot of success, as you'll see. You'll find out something very interesting about essay topics, and that many of these essay topics are emerging from a few keystone words. We'll talk about that. You'll get a list of those words, which, after you brainstorm about, you will have enough points to go into the exam and basically not be disarmed. You will have enough understanding in depth to be able to write on any essay topic. We'll learn how to master the art of making great first impressions. Then talk about building the body of your essay. What are your arguments going to be? What counter examples? What facts? What statistics? What is the flow of the narrative of what you're trying to say? How to build all that? This is bodybuilding, but this is not this kind of bodybuilding. We're talking about the body of your essay, building the body of your essay. We'll talk about this in a lot of detail. We'll construct a few of them. Everything has been broken up into parts. It has been made very easy to understand. I don't want you to worry about writing skills and to produce literary masterpieces or anything like that. Everything that you need to do in order to write a brilliant essay has been decoded, put together in these blocks. If you learn these blocks, not only do you learn how to write a great essay, you learn how to write great answers in the mains exam. Because after all of these essays and the answers which you write in the mains exam have some things in common. The essays are full blown 1,000 word, 2,000 word essays, but your answers are nothing but miniature essays. We learn how to use cheat codes for each of these blocks, how to generate points for each of these blocks, which makes them very, very versatile. You'll go through a lot of exercises. You'll talk about the Indian perspective, how to use that Indian perspective in an essay, uh, which cheat codes to use for that, how best to use the examples which are set in it. And again, you won't be able to just click your way through this entire process through this course. You'll have to actually type and input what you think about topics. It will force you to think, it will force you to write, but it won't force you to write entire essays in the beginning. It will just force you to write small portions, small blocks of the essay. And once you start doing this, it will be the best kind of practice which you can get, because everything has been turned into very interactive, uh, a game sort of interaction and a format. We learn about conclusions and why Bollywood is so typical and so stereotypical, and why the endings are usually happy endings. And we'll try to use that effect in our essay appropriately. We'll talk about how to write conclusions, encounter the Fantastic Four, learn that there is a cheat code called the Fantastic Four cheat code, go through a lot of fun exercises, and be able to understand how everything in the essay is connected. And we'll talk about that in detail in the course. But the next module which you will be faced with is a lot about you. You will be given worksheets, assignments. You will have a lot of mock tests and mock essays which will be scored by rank holders, I am told, and feedback. Constantly, people will be monitoring you. You can post your doubts. You will post your assignments. There will be discussions, webinars. You will be told what to do. You will be able to ask your doubts and really have that human touch, which uh, forces me to say that this whole thing becomes better than classroom teaching, because here you have absolute independence to ask individual doubts and to become proficient at your weak areas. I honestly never had anything like this while I was preparing. Just happy to see this whole thing come together like this. And we'll talk about uh, deconstruction, and you'll have a lot of worksheets to work on. You'll have to submit these worksheets which you'll be able to upload. There are plenty of those. There'll be exercises which you'll have to go through. You'll input what you have written, and you'll be able to see at the end of the page how you have done so far. In the final module, this is the most interesting module, we will begin by learning about the fact sheet. How important are facts in the exam? What kind of facts to use? What are the mistakes that can happen while using them? Should you use them? And if you do, what kind of strategy should you use in order to insert them strategically? Should you cite the sources? Of course, you should cite the sources. How best to cite the sources? How best to avoid mistakes in citing the sources? Where to insert these facts so that they have the maximum impact, so that they create the maximum the data-driven, research-backed kind of uh, look and feel to your essay. We'll talk about a cheat code to use that, and then we'll actually talk about the act of writing, because you know you can do all the pre-writing in the world, but the fact of the matter is, in a paper and pen test, you will spend most of the time actually writing. And I don't know if you've ever been through this, but it can get physically painful to keep writing for 3 hours at a stretch. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about all the issues that go along with writing and how best to write. We'll talk about language and writing skill, and we'll talk about how it doesn't need to be as complicated as it is made out to be, how simplicity is what will fetch you marks, and what is the aim of the entire process that we are going through. We'll talk about word limit, how we should not skip those word limits, and how to remain within it. Handwriting, of course, how important is it? We'll I won't tell you what I have to say about it. You'll just have to go and check it out for yourself. We'll talk about underlining, and I'll tell you if you really need to do that or not. And then you will learn about connecting words. So, say you have developed a lot of points. You have everything in front of you, laid out in front of you about what you're going to write in the essay. But how are you going to string those together to produce that nice flow, that linguistic appeal, which a well-written essay has? And there is a cheat code for that. You'll be able to resolve that problem by just learning just a few words, putting them in, placing them in, and you'll end up with a nice flow. You don't really need to be a gifted writer in order to do that. Then we'll talk about revisions and reviewing, why it's important. You'll learn what to do about it, how to leave spaces, whether you should attempt a question or should you completely leave a question. If you do attempt it, then what should you do in order to get something. We'll talk about two cheat codes, the SSS and the SOS cheat code in detail. And that is the whole game. In a nutshell, I think I just covered maybe 2% of the whole thing. It is just too detailed to give you an accurate picture in a few moments. But what I would like to say is that I had a lot of fun while making these videos, and I think that you should have a lot of fun while learning as well. There is no reason why learning should not be fun. It is actually better for performance. The more enjoyable the learning process is, the more likely you are to return to it, the more likely you're going to enjoy it, the more you'll become curious, the more you will absorb, the better you will perform. It's all connected, and I think it starts with positivity and that feeling of you wanting to learn and enjoying that process. If you take enjoyment out of that, I think you have nothing. You will be left with nothing but an exam to clear. You won't, I think, actually perform as well as you could have if you had enjoyed it. And so that has been my thrust. But at the same time, the learning that is embedded, that you're going to go through, is serious learning. You will be forced to work hard. You will be forced to revise. You will be forced to put pen to paper. You will be forced to analyze. You will be faced with your weaknesses. Uh, you will be. You will go on a journey. That much I can guarantee. I really hope that you enjoy this journey and that you take the message uh, and benefit from it as much as you can. You have my best wishes, and I really wish to see you succeed.